the spirit of delivering on what was absolutely 100% good faith intention, I'd like to revisit proposal that I attempted to move forward on in the summer of 2016. I had requested a small business loan because my intention was to assist in a school financing project, a private school financing project. The understanding I had in the proposal I made was that there would be engagement by the students as well as faculty and the parents in creating unguents and elixirs that were made from natural products available in the community and that were available widely throughout the region in which the school was located. There were a few considerations in this regard. For one, the community included people who had family experience and background working in agriculture in one form or another. Secondly, it was a community in an area that was known to periodically be exposed to waterborne illnesses, including illnesses that came from mosquitoes. Thirdly, it was an understanding that natural medicine was something with which people in the community were already familiar, and that while certain kinds of educational paradigms were being proposed and emphasized, there was also the need to preserve other paradigms that would also allow for community investment and sustainability. It was not meant to engage in a minors in a uncompensated labor, but it was hopefully a way of participating in a curricular activity in the school that would also contribute to making a product that would be available for sale and would be something parents could have ownership of while they also participated, perhaps even in some sort of economic role where they became the owners of the industry itself, of the enterprise itself. The understanding is that there would be leadership from the community in determining the development of the product, how to create whatever the market would be, how to define who would be the people with whom they would engage around obtaining the products needed to make it as well as to distribute it in its final form. But that it would primarily be a way to finance the school activities without having to resort to some sort of alleged philanthropic endeavor or some sort of government grant and or some sort of corporate financing that would leave decision making in the hands of other people besides the school, besides the parents, besides the students, and besides the community involved together in decision making and action. Now, despite the fact that I was not able to move forward on that at the time for a variety of reasons, I have persisted in this desire and I've been very stubborn in my resistance to cede the original intent that I understand was well received to competing modalities that have other priorities. At the same time, I spent a substantial amount of time in, I guess you could say, research about the potential perils and pitfalls that an industry such as this might encounter. Conflicts of interest, ulterior motives, efforts to try to undercut something that may represent one kind of value system over or in contextualization with another value system, considerations of other people's interests in trying to engage other kinds of products in the development of the final product for whatever reasons, including ones that would violate the principles of the community or interfere with the quality of the ingredients and the components available to the community by virtue of their relationship with their own land and with their own environment. All of these things were part of the research while I was experiencing my other matters. But I've recently come into a position where I've been able to acquire what would be available locally. See, the local economy where I am right now, Dallas, Texas, is a little different than where I was hoping to move forward on this endeavor. But at the same time, there's a lot of similarities. It's this concept of finding quality ingredients or components based on what's locally available. I believe they call it local sourcing, and to make use of it in the best manner you can. Now, in order to do something like this well, sometimes it takes time. And if we're talking about the concept of making something from scratch, especially if it has to do with some kind of infusion, using the kind of natural elements you have available, and also consideration for other factors, it takes a time to develop. And at this time, I have not engaged in trying to get financing for the significant startup matters. I have the raw materials for the basic, I guess you could say, first sample or first batch, so to speak. And I'm actually very excited that these possibilities could come into being with relative simple ease, and it may even be something other people are doing in their own regard. One thing, however, that I need to let people know is that I understand products like this in a manner that I did not understand at the time can and often are used as derivatives for other kinds of products. And the problem is not even necessarily a problem, but under the Texas Business Operations Code, it is not legal to engage a limited liability corporation in any derivative actions without a predetermined, predefined, pre-specified agreement that also has an amount of time required between when the agreement is agreed upon and when the actual derivative actions commence. Without that agreement, any efforts to use any other products that somebody has created in derivative actions is illegal. So this is the kind of thing that is important for people to know and to engage before they get any misconceptions about what they could project their potential onto an endeavor like this, either for myself or for other like-minded people. So I'm going to just give you a brief showing. Let's just see. One you might have seen before if you knew where to look for it. This jar here is a recycled jar. I purchased this as another product that was in this jar. That product was in, so I used the jar again. All of these jars are recycled. These are jars that I've gotten from some other place. It includes in here dried jalapeno peppers that have been put into an oil. The understanding to infuse the pepper oil. And the understanding is that this can be used as a muscle calming agent or something. If you have muscle stress, that it can be used, and it's very it's not too spicy right now. See, the thing about it is it's important if you do things like this to test it on yourself. It's not appropriate to engage in something like this and expect other people to be the people or the targets or those whom are subjected to it while you try to refine it. Getting a perspective just to kind of refine the quality, that's one thing. But insofar as this is a form of a pepper oil, it's important to identify what the intention was around its creation. And it's also important to let you know that the peppers themselves were given through a food bank. That there was a food bank in the city, and as part of the food distribution, they provided the raw materials in the form of the food. The oil was something I was able to purchase, and the jar was recycled from a former purchase, right? So these are the important things to note about that. The second thing is actually what I believe would make, and I already understand, and as part of a recipe I've already shared with others, concerning an insect repellent. You know, when we're talking about the proliferation of waterborne diseases or the kinds of perils that could be presented to a community based upon a potential outbreak of a waterborne disease, such as malaria, such as chikungunya, such as even Zika, which we don't hear so much about anymore, especially with other things that are taking dominance in the news. But there are parts of the world, including in the Western Hemisphere specifically, and there's also times of the year when the potential for an outbreak or for an infection or a public health malady connected specifically to those waterborne illnesses can occur. And one of the things you notice if you're in a community that might have that kind of risk is that there's a lot of attempts to use some sort of chemical product, including perhaps an incense or some sort of bug repellent that has a very significant chemical component to it. But I already know, and I've already tested in a region with a lot of mosquito risk, a natural, organic insect repellent that you can make yourself with completely organic materials. And by the way, if you do it correctly and you're so inclined, it also makes a very delightful kind of skin moisturizer. It's very simple. The ingredients I use, some people might, do it a little different. Primary ingredient one is rosemary. It's basically just a distilled oil. I'm using olive oil as a base oil, and the rosemary is in there to get infused with the natural oils of the rosemary to create a base rosemary oil. That would then be combined with no, actually, it's primary rosemary oil, but I also have a mint oil that is a spearmint. And this gives a different kind of flavor to it. Again, the base oil is olive oil, and the mint, the essential oil from the mint is being infused into the olive oil. And I'm not going to give you the rest of the recipe. There's a couple of other ingredients. All of them are organic. But when the time comes to actually make the final product, it gets mixed, the base oil gets mixed with another oil, and then that can be used. When you have the kind of heat you have here in Texas, the heat would actually solidify it into an actual kind of unguent that you can rub on. There's also ways to take that and create other products with it that might be less dense. You can also create it into a form of spray. The one that I used and tested on myself was actually spray. I put it in a spray bottle and I would just spray it on me and rub it in my skin. It felt gorgeous. Smelled wonderful, and it worked. That was the thing. It worked without any of the other chemical contaminants. So these are just a couple of the samples of what else. There's also cosmetic products, but they're not your conventional cosmetics. The idea is to do so in a small batch that can be accessible with all natural organic ingredients. One of the things you learn, for instance, if you use shampoo and conditioner, for instance, it doesn't have a lot of these chemicals in it. It changes the manner in which your body excretes. It changes your sebaceous oil glands. So there is a period of time. There can be anywhere from a week, sometimes to 3 weeks, while your body is adjusting to the elimination of the chemical contaminant buildup. And in that period of time, it can seem like a little discomforting. But after the first week, the second week, your body chemistry changes. And you react to the natural ingredients in a very different manner. And what I found personally is, even though I was in a place with very high humidity and significant heat, that I had less of a need to engage in what would be considered to be, let's put it this way, it definitely helped increase my water conservation. Because when your natural chemistry changes, your body's not trying to compensate for things that are being extracted from it that it has to adjust to. So it can assist with the conservation of your actual water usage without compromising hygiene or sanitation. So this was part of the endeavor. This is part of the anticipation. It's also part of the commitment. And it was absolutely 100% earnest. And sometimes these things, in order to be done right, they take time, but they can be done nonetheless. So I just wanted to share that with you. Not everything is doom and gloom, right? Not everything is the apocalypse. But if you prevent, or if conditions prevent something like this, then you just have to be persistent.